Hello, everyone. For this project, I wanted to tackle this question that's been running through my mind recently, and it pertains to the idea of what makes music or an instrument sound sad. I got this idea while watching a YouTube video that talked about how they were making happy songs turn sad and performing them. This question is really interesting to me because it lies at this intersection of psychology, cultural studies, and art. To understand this complex topic, I wanted to approach it from four perspectives. First, I wanted to examine music theory to understand the fundamental structures that create emotional responses. Then, I wanted to look at how culture and history have shaped our perception of musical sadness. And then, I wanted to analyze specific instruments and their specific capabilities for evoking emotional expression. And finally, what I believe to be the most important part, I wanted to explore the psychology of sound and understand how our brains process these musical emotions. I think this multifaceted approach will give us a more complete picture of this thing that I'm calling musical sadness. The foundation of sad sounding music can be broken down into three essential components. First, tempo and rhythm help us understand how sad music tends to move more slowly with longer notes and simpler rhythmic patterns that mirror the physical manifestations of sadness. In terms of timbral elements, we find that darker and muted tones with the rich lower harmonics create that sense of heaviness associated with melancholy. Coupled with performance techniques like gradual pitch slides and careful control of dynamics, allows musicians to replicate the subtle nuances of emotional expression.
When I think of sad music, I think of songs with slower tempos, songs that are more soulful, I guess, that evoke like a sense of soulfulness. I'd say those mixed together are kind of like what I think of when I do a sad song.
There's this deceptively simple equation. Major keys sound happy, minor keys sound sad. It's one of music's most fascinating phenomena. But why? Major keys provide stronger acoustic consonants, which essentially means that they are more stable to our ears. In contrast, minor keys create inherent harmonic tension through their interval relationships. I think what's particularly fascinating is how minor scales embrace natural chromaticism through their multiple variant forms. The natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor scales each add different layers of tonal complexity. The variability in the scale structure creates more opportunities for expressing nuanced emotional states. It's similar to how sadness itself isn't just one feeling, but it's a spectrum of emotional experiences. The way we express sadness through music has evolved significantly over time. Starting in the Baroque period, composers developed what they called the doctrine of affections, specific musical devices designed to evoke particular emotions. Notice how technological advancements, from basic violin construction to modern electronic amplification, have expanded our capacity for emotional expression. Similarly, performance techniques have evolved from limited vibrato to the rich variety of expressive tools we have today.
I would definitely say it's based on kind of like the tempo and the beat of the music that kind of portrays how sadness is expressed. In terms of love specifically, I feel like love songs have a lot of sadness within them, but like Adele's All You Can Ask and Bruno Mars's When I Was Your Man is kind of a more traditional expression of love in terms of intense sadness, and I feel like you could definitely cry to those songs. Versus like more indie modern artists like Rex Orange County kind of have like a high tempo songs that really cover sadness and love too. And you could also make an argument that you could cry to those songs, but I feel like that kind of music is more focused towards a new generation of people that kind of have to go with the flow of things, are always busy, so they don't often have the time to have intense bouts of sadness at any given point in time, as an older generation does. But yeah, I do think that tempo and themes and lyrics definitely portray the generational expression of sadness and love.
Music's ability to express sadness is truly universal, though it manifests differently across cultures. Eastern Asian instruments like the erhu and shakuhachi have influenced Western music with their unique expressive capabilities. The Middle Eastern ney flute's microtonal expressions have shaped how we think about pitch and emotion. What's particularly interesting is how these diverse traditions are being integrated into contemporary music, creating new ways to create emotional depth. The instrument that you're hearing in the background right now is called the erhu, which is also called the Chinese violin. It actually predates the modern violin by several centuries. Its two strings and unique resonating chamber covered with python skin create overtones that very closely match human vocal frequencies during an emotional expression. The way the erhu is played allows for incredibly subtle pressure changes that can produce sounds remarkably similar to human sobbing. When a violinist or erhu player wants to express sadness, they often employ specific techniques. They might use a slower bow speed with more weight to create darker, heavier tones, and they'll also frequently slide between notes rather than making clean transitions. And they'll use wider, slower vibrato that mimics the wavering of an emotional voice. All this coupled together gives three core features that allow for the erhu to evoke such strong emotions from a human. Its frequency ranges overlap perfectly with human emotional vocalizations, it allows for continuous pitch adjustment rather than fixed notes, and players can modify the tone while a note is being played through bow pressure and speed. Let me introduce you to one of the most emotionally expressive wind instruments ever created. It's called the Armenian duduk. It's what's playing in the background right now. UNESCO recognizes this ancient double-reed instrument as a masterpiece of the intangible heritage of humanity. The duduk's extraordinary ability to convey sadness comes from its distinctive physical characteristics. Unlike most woodwind instruments, it's crafted from a single piece of aged apricot wood. This wood was chosen specifically for its resonant properties. The wood's density and grain pattern create overtones that mysteriously align with the frequencies of human emotional expression. What makes the duduk particularly fascinating is its reed, called the gamish. It's significantly wider than the reeds used in other double-reed instruments like the oboe or bassoon. Sometimes it's up to 3 times as wide. This unique reed construction creates 3 specific qualities that enable profound emotional expression that is evoked in a listener. Now let's follow the fascinating journey of how music moves from simple sound waves to complex emotional experiences in our brain. The process begins when sound waves enter our ears and are converted to electrical signals. These signals trigger a cascade of responses throughout our different brain regions, from the auditory cortex's initial processing to the amygdala's emotional evaluation. This complex neural dance explains exactly why music can move us so deeply. At the end of the day, the human voice was our first instrument, and its profound connection shapes how we respond emotionally to all music. When we examine instruments that excel at conveying sadness, we consistently find that they share key characteristics with the human voice during emotional expression. Our voices naturally express emotion through continuous pitch control, dynamic variation, and sustained sounds with subtle fluctuations. Think about how your voice wavers and slides when you're deeply moved. The most emotionally expressive instruments, particularly chordophones and aerophones, share these exact capabilities. Their ability to slide between notes mirrors a breaking voice. Their dynamic control reflects the natural flow of emotional speech, and their capacity for sustained variable tones echoes the human cry. This relationship between voice and instrument isn't coincidental. It's deeply rooted in our evolution as emotional beings. When instruments can sustain notes while introducing minute variations in pitch and intensity, they're essentially speaking our first emotional language. A sustained note with gentle pitch fluctuations triggers the same neural pathways as human emotional expression. Just as we instinctively understand a sob or a sigh, we respond emotionally to instruments that can speak in these familiar ways, which explains why certain instruments seem to bypass our analytical minds and connect directly with our emotions. And so as I conclude this video, I feel the need to give my final thoughts, and I think it's summarized really well by the interview I did last, and I will play that for you now.
Honestly, I feel like it's just standpoint, right? Your state of mind at the time. I think there are a lot of sad songs that sound completely different to me when I'm not like feeling depressed or whatever. But I don't know, maybe it's like a collection of low and high notes that lean in the direction of sadness. Like, I don't know, I don't think there's like a single definition of like what makes a thing sad. I think it's just like where you stand relative to it.